Other than Robert Parker, after the launch, what was the general reaction of the wine industry?
I think because we had started the same blind tastings I had done at home, we started them at the wineries. So we did it in Napa, we did it in Bordeaux, we did it in Burgundy, we did it in Australia with the winemakers, Italy as well, Spain. And then we did blind tastings with sommeliers. So this was in part before we launched and in part soon after we launched. Before we went to any country or launched in any country, we tried to at least get to the wineries and start these blind tastings. So there were two questions that were important to answer. Number one, does it work? And then number two, if it works, what does that mean? What is it that allows? What does that enable? And so we wanted to get at the does it work first. And so we held blind tastings with the winemakers at 3 months, 6 months, a year. Same with the sommelier in Paris and New York and San Francisco and Berlin and Munich and Hamburg, name your city, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Beijing, Sydney, Melbourne, all over the world, Madrid, Barcelona, Rome, Milan. It was as a wine consumer, I had a blast, right? I got to go all over the world doing these blind tastings with winemakers and their wines. And if you're coming into the wine industry in this tangential path and you're just a wine lover, the extraordinary opportunity that was provided to me to really get to know the people and the places and the smell of the air in Burgundy when the leaves are turning brown and falling off of the branches, and the smell of Ribera del Duero in the middle of the summer, standing there with Alejandro. Oh, come on, the guy from Pesquera. He was an 80-something-year-old inventor, and we're standing out in his vineyards, and I'm smelling this heat-induced, vapor coming off of the plants. And I've had just these extraordinary experiences. But we did all these blind tastings, and that convinced people that it worked. And then the harder fight is always the change in behavior. How do you convince somebody that in their restaurant they can have 20 or 30 wines by the glass, and that they can start serving higher end wines by the glass? These are things that they never put on their by the glass list because they were too expensive to waste. And they didn't believe that anybody would want to buy an expensive glass. They didn't realize how much somebody was willing to pay for a glass. So it was a risk. And what that takes is lead users and thought leaders. So 67 Pall Mall and Grant Ashton and Ronan Saburn in London, opening up their entire cellar to buy the glass. They now have the largest wine by the glass program. They've beaten me by 200 wines, and guys in New York, Thomas Pastuzak at the Nomad, no longer there. Jeff Porter at Del Posto, no longer there. 11 Madison Park and Dustin Wilson. These guys were the lead users that demonstrated to the rest of the industry that you can do this. Noble Rot in London. Still, Australia has a pile of really great restaurants that took the risk and changed behavior, and then people followed. But it's still work. We launched Coravin Sparkling recently, a couple of years ago, and imagine the hesitation. Like the hesitation of a great wine by the glass program is one thing. The hesitation of a 10 champagne by the glass program. I mean, everybody knows champagne goes bad, it goes flat, and it oxidizes, and so they're like, getting them to put 5, 6, 7, 8 different sparkling wines on their list. And, if you do it, people drink them, but they fear doing it. And so Coravin Sparkling truly works. So we had to convince them that it worked again. And then the change in behavior. I have 6 different champagnes open in my fridge, plus a House of Arras from Tasmania. And I have a different glass of sparkling wine every day. That was a change in behavior for me. I never drank champagne. Or rarely, because it was just a celebratory thing, and you had to drink the whole bottle. And so now I had the same freedom with champagne that I had with still wine. So it's and then convincing Moet Hennessy and getting the winemakers at Krug and Dom Perignon and Ruinart, Veuve Clicquot and Chandon to say yes, it works, right? And now I just came back from a tour of Korea, Japan, and Hong Kong. My first trip to Asia since the pandemic, and this is a region that loves champagne, like absolutely loves champagne. And so getting to sort of post-pandemic launch sparkling in Asia was great to see. And the same thing, you've got your lead users who are way out front, 67 Pall Mall in Hong Kong with 67 champagnes by the glass. And then you've got the conservative, arms crossed over their chest. What are you talking about? How can I open 5 bottles of champagne? We still fight this change in behavior. And it's true at home too, right? The number one thing I hear from consumers is, I finished the bottle. Why do I need this? I finished the bottle. And that's because that's how they know how to drink wine. That's how wine has been consumed in their families and over their 10 or 15 years of drinking wine. And I say to them, you can still drink a bottle, just drink it from 3 different wines.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to say, that if you need that volume, you can still do it, but it would be more interesting to drink a volume of one bottle of wine from 3 or 5 or 6 samples.
It's still a change in behavior, and I respect. It's funny, we've gone through mission statements at Coravin and to change the way that wine is served and sold. I kind of like it, but I've always said to expand the ways that wine is enjoyed, served, and sold. I'm not a zealot. I still finish bottles of wine. Parker can attest. But, not every day. But I would love a great glass of wine every day.
Thanks for watching this video. You can watch the full podcast episode by clicking here, or watch another interesting video by clicking here. Let's continue the discussion in the comment section and see you in the next one.